Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat and today I'm doing my June wrap-up part 2. So I read 17 books in June. So I already have part 1 up. I will leave it linked down below. Today we are going to talk about the 8 books that I read in the second half of June. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is The Membranes by Ta-Wei, who is a Taiwanese author. This was originally written in 1995, but only translated this year. So this was an arc that I received from NetGalley. And what first drew me to this was the setting. So humanity has gone through this massive global warming, sea rising, basically environmental catastrophe. And humanity has moved to domes at the bottom of the ocean beds, and androids and cyborgs maintain surface solar powers in order to get energy down to the domes. And we are following one resident of T City who is Momo. And Momo is one of the most popular dermal care technicians. Basically, she coats her clients in a protective layer of skin so that they don't age. And then when they come back for their next appointment, she peels it off and reapplies a new coat of skin. And one of the coolest things about her job is that she can then wear the skin and experience all the memories from every single pore and membrane that that person experienced on their body. It is just so weird and so deliciously creepy. Momo is trying to figure out more about herself and also her relationship with her mother, who is a very famous celebrity, and she's trying to rekindle her mother-daughter relationship. Like the last 20% of the book brought this up to a 4-star for me. It is so deliciously weird, and the setting is amazing. The skin, like, lab is also so weird and delicious, and also the plot twist at the end is one of the best I've read in so many years. So if this is something that you're interested in, please do give it a go. After that, I finished up a book that I'd been reading / slogging through for the month of June, and this was an FF romance called When Sparks Fly by Kristen Zimmer. So this is following a girl who's in her last year of high school, and she's in the foster system, and she goes to stay with a family who has a daughter her same age. Book would be great for YA readers who are still in high school, because I think that it was very relatable. Like the pride days and going trick-or-treating and the drama of high school I thought was very authentic. However, as a 30-year-old lady, it was a little hard for me to get through because I just didn't care about some of the drama and some of the back and forth. But I think that this book deals really well with high school dynamics, grief, coming of age, and coming out stories. So I really do recommend this, but more for YA readers. After that, I read some poetry. This was another arc that I had from NetGalley. This is Dear Azula. I have a crush on Danny Phantom. This has 2 authors, 2 poets, Azura, Tyabji, and Jakobsen, Neal, who goes by he, they. And this is a collection of poetry based on kind of queer icons in my pop culture childhood. So there's Kim Possible, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Teen Titans, Danny Phantom, The Emperor's New Groove, Mulan, Shrek, The Lion King, and The Incredibles. Some of the poems are them being attracted to those characters, and some of the poems are an exploration of queer identity through the characters, and I thought that the references were often cooler than the poems, if that makes sense. So I gave this 3 stars because for me, I definitely had a crush on Kim Possible, Shigo as well, Raven, Azula, Zuko, Blackfire, and Danny from Danny Phantom. So I felt very like kindred spirity with the poets. However, just because I like the pop culture references didn't necessarily mean I loved the poems. After that, I read one of the only books I read in the month that didn't have queer content. For some reason, this just caught my attention and I needed to read it. This was another arc from NetGalley, and it's actually not out till August 3rd, but I really recommend it. So this is The Wingmaker by Mette Jakobsen, who is Danish. So we are following a main character who, she had heart surgery after a heart attack, and then her boyfriend broke up with her. So she is just dealing with this really heavy, hellish, like, is my life worth it? I need to recover and find myself again type of mentality. And she has the perfect opportunity because she is a marble, like, restoration artist, and a museum has commissioned her to put the wings back on this big marble angel sculpture. So she has them move the sculpture and the broken wings to her adopted father's latest venture, which is a crumbling hotel near the seaside, which he bought and plans to make into a restaurant. But currently it's like very old. It has a bunch of like really decorative, luscious wallpaper and gilded chandeliers, which are a little cobwebby. It has some untamed canaries in there and huge gilt frames of like hunting scenes, but it's very cold and drafty and it's overlooking this ocean. And when she arrives there with the statue to restore it, she realizes that there is also someone living there, and his name is Gunnar, and he is a recovering war medic who has some PTSD that he's working through as well. So he is supposed to be fixing up the hotel and mansion and getting it ready. So while she is trying to recover and put the pieces and the wings of the marble sculpture back together, Gunnar is also trying to recover himself and get away from the bad memories he has by swimming naked in the ocean and reading. I loved this. I cried. I couldn't put it down. I read it in basically one sitting. I said the major vibes of this book are quiet, meditative, melancholy, and redemptive. This book just crept up so quietly on me and just made me sob. And I really, really enjoyed it, and I really recommend it if that's something that you're looking for. I thought it was wonderful, and I gave it 4 stars. After that, I read one of the best dark fantasy books I have read in a long, long time. This is Star Eater by Kerstin Hall, and this was also a NetGalley arc that I read. This is so good. If you have dark tastes like I do, I really urge you to get this. I gave it 4.5 stars. I was completely blown away. So we are set in a kingdom which the city itself has been raised into the sky by this sisterhood. And the sisterhood is basically a cabal of women who inherit magic through their genetic line, and they maintain the magic through blood. And the magic system in here is so dark and gruesome, and the first time that I realized how they maintain their magic, I was like, that is so dark. I love it, but also like, that's just so dark. And in this world, the sisterhood is important because there are haunts, which are monsters that were once human, and the monsters kind of level up. They're kind of like, not Pokemon at all, but like they're evil versions. So they are slowly turning from human into less human and lesser human until they are these huge, like anamorphic demon monsters that, you know, kill people. And so the sisterhood has to use magic to banish them from the realm, essentially. And our main character is a sister who hates being a sister, but it's your genetic line, so you don't really get a say, like you're born into it. And she is battling with not wanting to be a sister, but then also being dragged into being a spy by like this rebel faction that is blackmailing her. And it's balanced with relationships with her very dear friends, who are a brother and sister that she's known since childhood. And like, this was so good. I just think it's amazing. It's one of my favorite dark fantasy of the year and maybe of all time. I thought it was absolutely amazing. It also has queer elements. It has lesbian and bisexual representation in here. And I really do, I'm gonna read you all the triggers because this one especially, I think the reason that a lot of people don't rate this that highly, like, because currently it has a 3.64 rating, but I gave it 4.5, and I really thought that the dark elements worked very well. I think it's truly because it is so freaking dark. Like, it's very dark. So these are all the triggers. Okay. Gore, blood, body mutilation, cannibalism of both alive and dead people, rape, body horror, forced impregnation, murder, physical assault, cutting, trauma, traumatic visions, chemical abortion, stay in a sanatorium, off page, burning at the stake, airborne infection, monster horror, infanticide, off page, parental abuse, off page, claustrophobia, which is fear of confined spaces, and also nyctophobia, which is fear of the dark. So like, when I say that those elements are in there, I mean like they're all in there. So definitely don't read it if it's too dark for you, but oh my god, I thought it was amazing, and I'm gonna stop ranting about it right now. All right, so the one that I picked up after that was completely different. So I picked up Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, who you might know is a female Japanese writer. So this is actually a 2-part story collection, Kitchen, and then also Moonlight Shadows. So Kitchen deals with a young woman who is exploring grief after her grandmother dies, who was her like sole family member left. And she goes to stay with a family friend of her grandmother's. So the family has a boy her age and also a trans woman. And then the second story in here, Moonlight Shadows, is dealing with a young woman and man who are struggling after there was a car accident which killed the boyfriend and the brother and the girlfriend of the two like main characters. So they're dealing with grief, and one of the ways that the brother deals with the grief is he dresses in his girlfriend's school uniform as a way of coping. Like, the overall vibes of these short stories are very melancholic in a way that I find Japanese writers do so well. However, Yoshimoto's writing style just isn't for me. I think I can say that now. I think I've read most of what she has written that has been translated into English. And I will just say a major con of this is that this was written in the 1980s, and it shows because there is the transphobic comments and murder of the trans woman in here. And I gave this, I think, 3 stars overall. I'm just very lukewarm about it. So after that, I picked up The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junauda Petrus, who is an American writer of Caribbean Afro descent. So this is following 2 main characters for the most part. One is Audrey, who is a Trinidadian young woman who is caught with her girlfriend, and her mother freaks out and sends her to live with her father in America. And one of the father's friends has a daughter that's the same age, and that daughter is kind of a non-femme, basketball-loving high schooler as well, and they strike up this friendship. The really strong elements of this book are that the Trinidadian sections and the dreams and the memories made me want to visit there so bad, and also the descriptions of food sound amazing. Apparently Trinidadian Ital food is kind of like vegan food, and it just sounded absolutely amazing. Another really interesting aspect of this is the idea of black melanin in the skin being part of the cosmic lineage of black people who have been part of the diaspora from the African continent. And I thought that those lines were particularly beautiful. But the reason why I gave this 4 stars and not higher is because a major part of this is a terminal illness plotline. I never heard about that during the marketing. I thought this was a sapphic romance with a happy ending, and this actually deals a lot with death and grief and knowing you're going to die. And I would not have picked it up at that time if I'd known, because that's like a really heavy, heavy topic, and it's not every day that I'm in the mood to read about terminal illness and death of the character on the page. So I just wanted to say that if you're planning to read this, this book is a complete mix of light and joy and just complete devastation and grief. So just be aware of that before you go in. And the last thing that I consumed in June was Artificial Condition, which is number 2 in the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. Murderbot goes on a mission to help this new crew of humans that it has run into. And the humans are wonderfully queer and diverse, but it kind of follows the same formula as the first story. But it was just nice to be back in the world again, and I gave it 4 stars. So those are the 8 books that I read in the second half of June. Please let me know what amazing books you have been reading lately so far. I got so many great queer recs on my last video, so thank you so much for leaving me those comments, and I will see you soon in another video. Lots of love. Bye!